Yo, check it out. Thanks again for checking out another edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am 12 Kyle. But you probably already know that by now. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe to the SoundCloud page. Go to soundcloud.com/TWELVE-KYLE 12-Kyle. You can also subscribe on iTunes. Just go to iTunes and subscribe there. The 12 Kyle podcast. You can also subscribe on Stitcher. If you have an Android or iPhone, go to the application store, upload the Stitcher application for free, search the 12 Kyle podcast, subscribe there, and you can listen at leisure, at home, or on the go. It's just that simple. So today, we're going to get into it a little bit about subjects near and dear to my heart. Anybody that knows me knows that I am a huge hip-hop head. Been listening to hip-hop probably since I was 7 or 8 years old. I'm 43 now, so I've been around for a minute. Just like hip-hop. I mean, I'm almost as old. Actually, I'm a little slightly older than hip-hop. Nonetheless, if you listened to my shows before and you read my blog, I've kind of talked ad nauseum about, who I thought was top 5 MC and some of the best MCs to ever pick up a microphone. And if you haven't heard my spiel on those, I mean, you can find it. It's on here. Or it's on my blog. Nonetheless, today I'm going to do something a little different. I know that a lot of times when you get into the discussion about top 5 MCs, I understand that it's always subjective. I mean, just because I'm a true hip-hop head and I've been around for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that my opinion is right. Even though if you differ, I might think that you're whack. But seriously, I think, everybody is entitled to their opinion. When you do lists and stuff like that, all of that stuff is always subjective. I get it. And I know that a lot of times, whether it's magazines or websites, a lot of that stuff is done to, move the needle and to draw interest and to start arguments and debates and things of that nature. I'm not necessarily here to do that. I think today what I want to talk about really is a lot of times we talk about the top 5, and there's what I'm always kind of surprised by is sometimes how certain MCs make people's lists. And I'm like, how did that person make your list? Because they wouldn't even come close to making my list. And again, I think everything is subjective. Now, I will put this disclaimer out. Given the fact that I've listened to hip hop since my infancy, I am more prone to listen to old school hip hop as opposed to the hip hop of today. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't listen to today's hip hop. I don't listen to a lot of it. I'm just going to be honest with you, because I find a lot of it to be not that good. Lyrically, and not lyrically appealing to me. And that's not to say that there aren't lyrical cats. I guess the best way that I can describe where I am with hip hop is when you come up in the era in which I came up, it's like, when you were in your 20s, or let's say you were 20 years old, like maybe taking a woman to Applebee's might be a nice gesture. That might be really, really cool. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with Applebee's. Applebee's is cool. But at 20, Applebee's was really like the hot move. That was what you needed to do, to take the young ladies. But as you get older, and you experience other restaurants and you experience fine cuisine and, 4-course meals and things of that nature, restaurants where you'll spend quite a bit of money and really enjoy the ambiance of the restaurant. Hey, you're having wine and all that good stuff. Going to Applebee's ain't the same anymore. So I guess for my musical taste, like the era in which I came up, that era was so different from what it is today. So now I kind of view today like going to Applebee's. I mean, it's cool, but I would just prefer to hit the 5-star restaurants because honestly, that's what I'm used to. So my hip hop is more 5-star restaurants. I'm not crapping on anybody's MCs or anybody's era or anything like that, even though I might be just a little bit. But sincerely, that's just where I am. So I just want to kind of preface that so as I go forward, you'll kind of understand where I'm coming from. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't just dump on the new school, but if you're an MC and you came after 2000, I don't necessarily hold you in the same regard as I do someone who came out in 88, the greatest year in hip hop. And that's not to say that person that came out in 2002 is not good. I just don't look at them the same. And it's always kind of, and that's another thing too that you have to keep in mind when you're doing these kind of lists, is that you always have to keep in mind the eras. And the eras, it's all very difficult to substantiate everybody under the same umbrella. It's almost like if you're trying to compare, a wide receiver of today to a wide receiver of the 80s to like a Jerry Rice or a Tim Brown. If you're going to compare, today's wide receiver, because in today's NFL, they throw the ball every play, wherein in the 80s, they didn't throw the ball every play. They didn't throw the ball as much, and they had dope running backs and things of that nature. So you sports fans will get my correlation right there. But nonetheless, I think I just want to kind of give you an idea as to where I'm coming from. Anyway, today I want to talk about the not top 5. Because everybody has their top 5. But then I started thinking like, who are some people that I see commonly in everybody else's top 5 that quite frankly wouldn't make my top 10. And there's a reason for that. Now, I think, like I said, everything is subjective. And I'll give you an example. Like an MC like, let's say Scarface, right? Scarface is not in my top 5 MCs. And when I say MCs, I'm strictly talking lyrics. I'm not talking about social impact. I'm not talking about the guy or woman who sold the most records. I'm not talking about all of that. I'm talking about just straight lyrics, just straight 64 bars, bust you upside the head lyrics. So let's use a guy like Scarface, for example. Scarface is someone who I've seen in other people's top 5. He's not in my top 5, but I would put him like at 10. So for this discussion, I'm not going to mention a guy like Scarface for my not top 5, because even though he's not in my top 5 and he's in other people's top 5, he's in my top 10. So, you kind of, I'm giving people some wiggle room from 5 to 10, basically. So you get where I'm coming from. But, if someone said, I don't know, that Tone Loc was in their top 5, then, I'm probably going to cuss you out, really. I mean, just Tone Loc, really? I mean, nonetheless, so I just wanted to kind of give you an idea as where I'm going with this. So I started thinking about, just the not top 5. And I'm going to give you reasons as to why I don't think that these people are in the top 5. And in my case, they wouldn't be my top 5 nor top 10. Just for the record, my top 5 is lyrical MCs as follows. At 5, I got Biggie. At 4, KRS-One. Number 3, Jay-Z. Number 2, Nas. And number 1, the God MC, Rakim Allah. So there you go. That's my top 5. And that's just, like I said, that's just based off of lyrics. That's not based off of albums sold. That's not based off of, who had the most women, who had the hottest cars in their videos, or anything like that, or who had the hottest songs on the top 40 charts. Nothing of the sort. So let me run down a couple of MCs that I have jotted down here. This first one may surprise you. He's in a lot of people's top 5, but he doesn't make my top 5, and he's on a lot of lists, and I understand why, but it comes with a caveat, and that's ladies love Cool James, Mr. James Todd Smith, aka LL Cool J. Uncle L, I would say, and I get why people put him in their top 5. If you look at LL's first 2, 3, 4 albums, I mean, LL had some bangers. I mean, like, he was killing you with the radio, Walking with the Panther. I was feeling all of LL's work up until Mama Said Knock You Out. I think Mama Said Knock You Out was probably his last dope album. After that, to be honest, and I'm a huge LL fan, after that, LL lost me. Pink cookies in a plastic bag getting crushed by, I'm like, come on, L, what is that? Now, I will say, he kind of revived and got his career, and his career now. LL didn't fall off. LL's been around for such a long time because of acting and everything like that. But I ask you, what was the last dope verse you've heard from LL? Think about it for a second. What's the last dope verse that you heard from LL? I mean, like, it's probably been a minute. It wasn't Headsprung. It wasn't accidental racist. It wasn't any of that, man. I mean, so I think people probably put LL in their top 5 because of, what he did in the past, and rightfully so. I mean, if you look at his discography, his first 3 or 4 albums were incredible. But I think the subsequent albums after that, for me, pushes LL out of the top 5. And I don't necessarily think that, if you look at who he's up against for a top 5 slot, I think there are a few that are lyrically better than LL. Now, when it comes to battle rap, I mean, LL, he's damn near undefeated when it comes to battles. But we're not talking about battles. We're just talking about just straight lyrics. And of course, part of his lyricism was his battle, so that's going to hold him in high regard. So I get it. I don't necessarily crap on people who put LL in their top 5. He's just not top 5. Okay? Got it? All right. Next. And I don't know how and I see this guy's name in a lot of people's top 5. I mean, a lot of people who I think know more than a little bit about hip hop, they either have him in their top 5 or top 10, and I just can't. And that's Big Pun. God bless the dead, man. Pun was he had incredible flow. He had, charisma. I mean, you go listen to Capital Punishment. I mean, that album front to back is a blazer. But and Pun's discography, isn't that long, but I don't necessarily punish him for his lack of having, 10 albums. He's not here. God bless his soul. But I don't understand how people put Pun in the top 5. And I think some of that has to do with Pun not being here with us. And I think I always come back to this. If Pun were alive and his album stopped at the time with the last album and the last bit of music that we got from him before he passed, would he be in the top 5? To me, that answer is no. I don't understand how anybody can put him in the top 5. But surprisingly, people, I mean, like I said, respected hip hop heads. I've even seen some hip hop artists, be asked about it, and they put Big Pun in their top 5. I don't get it. And that's no knock on Pun. I got all his albums, loved his music. I'll still bump it from time to time. Capital Punishment, I definitely still bump from time to time. But honestly, nah, man. Top 5, and personally, I don't even think it's close. If you think so, let me know. I just is that one kind of has me. I don't necessarily get frustrated when I see people put LL in their top 5, but if you put Big Pun in your top 5, I'm like, where's that coming from? I mean, like, are you down? Were you down with him? Were you rolling with the Terror Squad or something like that? So I don't get it. I just don't get it. The next one is more of a contemporary MC, and that's Drake. I see a lot of younger cats, and maybe some of the younger cats who put Drake in their top 5, probably. My guess is that if you put Drake in your top 5, you probably don't know who Rakim is. And if you don't know who Rakim is and you call yourself a hip hop fan, shame on you. I mean, like, you're supposed to know the ones that preceded the ones that you rock to, because Drake was inspired by guys like Nas. Nas was inspired by guys like Rakim. So you have to understand the hip hop family tree, if you will. That being said, I personally, and again, it's not about popularity, it's not about hotness, because if you turn on any radio station, you don't have to listen no more than probably 20 minutes before you hear a Drake song. Personally, I'm not a fan of Drake's, but I can't front. The guy is hot. I mean, like, he makes good, hot music that the kids rock out to. I can't rock out to it, but the kids do. So, hey, it is what it is. I'm just not, I'm not a Drake fan. And every time I say that, people always look at me, oh, man, how can you not like Drake? I have friends that ask me, how can you not like? I just don't. I mean, like, his music doesn't appeal to me. And that's not why I don't have him on the top 5. I think, here's the thing about Drake. And here's the thing that I actually like about Drake. I think Drake has found a lane, if you will. And Drake has purposefully and crafted a style to stay in that lane. And he stays in that. He doesn't necessarily try to venture off. Drake doesn't try to do anything that he's not capable of doing. Drake's the guy who can, he's good at layups. He's very good at layups. You won't see Drake trying to dunk the ball. I mean, because he knows what his game is. He's a guy, who, and I'm gonna use a basketball reference. He's a guy that, that shoots in the paint. He shoots in the paint. He's not gonna wander off and shoot 3-pointers. He's just not, because he understands what works for him. So, God bless Aubrey. I mean, again, I have no qualms with how he goes about his business, and he's carved a beautiful niche for himself. That being said, I couldn't put Drake in my top 10. I couldn't put Drake in my top 15, to be honest. If you do, please tell me why, because and who are the other 4 MCs that are in the class with him? I just don't see it. I just, again, to me, Drake, not top 5. Now, I will say this much. If he continues on this path, I mean, you could probably revisit this scenario another 10 years from now. Maybe we'll have some, maybe he'll have a little bit more ground to stand on. But right now, nah, man. It ain't even close. Next is a guy who he seems to end up on everybody's top 5, but I just can't put him in mine because and it's no knock on him per se. It's just, I don't think he's better than everybody else on my list. And that's Marshall Mathers, aka Eminem. M is crazy. And I mean, like, when I say crazy, he is crazy. Eminem is, if you just sit down and listen to some of the stuff that he says, Eminem is the type of MC that, sometimes you have to really just kind of vibe out and listen to his stuff and then put it down and then come back to it. And then when you come back, you'll hear something. You're like, man, how did I miss that the first time? Like, he is very, very knowledgeable, very skilled. He has definitely honed his craft to the best of his ability. I think the knock, at least my knock on Eminem, is that when I listen to his albums, like I can listen to an Eminem album and, probably listen to it for a couple of weeks and then put it down and not go back to it. Like his albums really don't have a lot of replay value for me. They just don't. But when I do go back and listen, I find myself picking up on things. And again, I think for me, and this is just on a personal note, I think M's music is, while it's great, and he also has a formula too. He'll hit you with the "Hi, my name is" type stuff, and then he'll come back, with he'll jump on somebody's verse and give you the hottest 16, like he did on Dead Wrong, or Renegade, and just blow whoever he's rhyming with out of the water. So nah, I couldn't put him ahead of any of the MCs that I mentioned before. Again, his music is great. It just doesn't have a lot of replay value for me. And I think after and he has so much quote unquote shock value that once you've heard it a couple of times, like the shock value wears off, and then you just, you have some songs that just are lyrically brilliant. And then you have other songs that just on every album that's just, just fillers. And I think the filler tracks kind of kill me more than it does, his lyrical tracks. But I mean, lyrically, the boy is bad. You can't front on it. He's not top 5. I mean, for me, on a personal note, he's not top 10. But most people, a lot of people that put Eminem in their top 5, I just don't see it. It's just not top 5. Next up is Lil Wayne. The guy who coined the phrase "wobbity wobbity, drop it like it's hot." Oh my gosh. Lil Wayne is, by all accounts, a lot of people's top 5. Much like Eminem, he's not in mine. I will say this much. When I listen to Wayne, I get something, but it just, and here's my frustration with Wayne. When Lil Wayne wants to rap, he can rap. I mean, he really can rap. I mean, when he really, really wants to go in, Lil Wayne is a bad boy. There's no doubt about it. For the life of me, I don't know when it happened. I don't know if it happened overnight, but I just remember when the Hot Boys broke on the scene, honestly, amongst hip hop heads, myself included, nobody was checking for Lil Wayne's verse in the crew. Nobody, for real. I'm telling you. No, it was either Juvie, it was BG, then it might be Wayne. But on if you think I'm lying, go back and listen to the early Hot Boys albums. Go back and listen to Juvie's solo album. And again, part of that could have been because Wayne was so much younger than them that, he was trying to wait his shine. I don't know when, but it seemed like at some point in time, the light went off with him, and I don't know if it was his mixtape scene, but he wasn't the little dude with the corny rhymes anymore. It wasn't just about the bling bling or anything like that. He really was spitting some stuff. But again, my frustration with Wayne is that I just don't know when he wants to rhyme. When he really, really wants to rhyme, he can blow. I mean, like you could, and I don't necessarily knock people who put Wayne in their top 5. I don't think that, again, because of the eras, I don't think that Wayne could top anybody in my top 5. I don't know if Wayne can necessarily, you could probably make a case for Wayne for top 10. Personally, he's not in my top 5. And that's not necessarily to say that he's whack or anything. I just don't know. He's just not better than anybody else that I've laid out. And I think when I listen to Lil Wayne, that's my frustration. Is because 1 minute he'll put out some stuff and you can listen to it, and the first thing you will say is like, what the hell is he talking about? Like, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. This is dumb. And then he has some other stuff, you listen to him again, and he'll have some stuff that lyrically will blow your mind. I just don't see the consistency, and I don't know if it's because the drugs that he's on, or stuff he's going through in his personal life. I don't know. I don't know what the difference is, but I think really to be considered a top 5 MC, you have to have a level of consistency from song to song, from verse to verse throughout your discography. I don't see that in Wayne. I just don't. If you do, please let me know. I don't. And again, that is one of the things that's very frustrating just listening to him, because there's no level of consistency. He has his moments where he, the Carter 3, 4, where he can just go off. And then he'll have some other songs where it's just like, you almost get lost, like, yo, why did you even make this? You're wasting your time. So I think, that's where I am with Lil Wayne. Next MC is one that's near and dear to my heart. I'm a huge fan of, and that's Andre 3000. A lot of people put 3 Stacks in the top 5. Andre 3000 is not a top 5 MC. And I know I'm going to get some hate mail for this, but he's not. And I'm going to tell you why he's not. Because Andre 3000, to me, he hasn't done it on his own. I would like to see, and it's probably never going to happen, I would love to see a solo album where we just get 3 Stacks just rhyming, and don't get me wrong, he has more than held his own in an Outkast, but and maybe it's just the purist in me, but I think I always correlate his rhyme with Big Boy's rhymes, and I think Big Boy is dope as hell. I love Big Boy. I love Outkast. Outkast is one of my favorite hip hop groups of all time, but 3 Stacks by himself, just because he does not have a solo album, I can't put him in my top 5. And I know that that's not necessarily fair, but hey, it is what it is. I just can't. It's just not. It ain't going down like that, man. I just can't put him in the top 5, knowing that he doesn't have a solo album. So I really need to see him stand out and rhyme on his own. Now, he's dropped some crazy 16 over the last 5, 6, 7 years. 16 bars on other guest features. And I love that about him. But I would love to see Andre 3000 with a solo album. Unfortunately, I don't think Andre 3000 wants to rap anymore. I think, he's cool with doing whatever he's doing, the acting thing, and doing the 16 here or there, or because I think if you told Andre 3000 to make a solo album, he come up with Hey Ya, and I'm not counting the Love Below, the double CD joint that he did with, but because that was still an Outkast album, even though he wrote and rhymed on his thing, and Big Boy rhymed and wrote on his. I'm talking about just a straight solo Andre 3000 album. That's it. So I don't know that we'll ever get that. But I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, Andre 3000, not top 5. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about 2 of the most talked about MCs who generally end up in most people's top 5. And I don't necessarily know if they should be or shouldn't be. that would be Biggie and Tupac Shakur. So we'll be right back in just a second.
Do you know who the best player in the game is? Me, Mars Blackman. And I'm way above the rim, demonstrating some serious hang time. Very serious. Do you know how I get up for my game? Do you know? That's right. Air Jordan, Air Jordan, Air Jordan. Mike, what's up? Oh, money. Why you want to do that to me? Why you leave me hanging? Come on. I got it. Oh, Mike, man. That's cold, man.
And just like that, I'm back. As I mentioned before we went to the break, there are two MCs who almost always find themselves in a lot of people's top 5, and I don't necessarily know. Well, let me rephrase that. You can actually make a case to put them in your top 5. And you can also make a case to not put them in your top 5. And that would be Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur. The late great Biggie Smalls and the late great Tupac Shakur. As for Biggie, Biggie ends up in a lot of people's top 5. As I mentioned, he's in my top 5. I love Biggie. What can I say about? I mean, he had flow, he had charisma. I mean, he was lyrically, he was just incredible. I think when you're talking about lyrical MCs, Biggie, especially in the time in which he came out, Biggie was phenomenal. The knock that you could probably put on Biggie, and the knock that I've seen as to why some people don't have him in their top 5, is because of his discography. Biggie only made 2 albums, and that's through no fault of his own. He was tragically taken away from us far too soon. I don't necessarily use that as a knock against Biggie. But I've seen people make the case for why Biggie does not appear in their top 5. And to be honest, I can understand it. But again, I don't necessarily, use that to put him in or put him out. I think if you use the thought process that I mentioned about Big Pun, if you go by if Biggie were still alive and the only thing that we had to go off of as to whether or not we put him in our top 10 or top 5, is Ready to Die and Life After Death, does he get in the top 5 then? Maybe not. I don't know. I think that there's something, much like for those who put Big Pun in their top 5, for those that put Biggie and Tupac in the top 5, I think there's something to be said about the fact that, there's a sentimental value. There's an underlying sentimental value because they are no longer here with us. I think that's fair to say. So, ultimately, I'm not going to, knock you out or cuss you out if you don't have Biggie in your top 5. He's in mine, but I understand why there are some that do not put Biggie in their top 5. So if you have a not top 5 list and Biggie's on your not top 5 list, I understand. As for Tupac Amaru Shakur, love Tupac, man. Tupac, in my opinion, is the most influential rapper of all time. I mean, I think Tupac has influenced so many people in generations, and still continues to this day to influence people, from the grave. That being said, and I love Tupac, and I loved all his albums. I mean, I don't think he put out any whack albums. He had some songs that were, a little lackluster, but there was always a meaning and a message behind almost everything. And I wish much like Biggie and much like Big Pun, I wish that he were still alive to see, some of the things that are going on socially and economically in this world. And I think I think Tupac's voice would reign loudly over a lot of stuff that's happening. That being said, I don't put Tupac in my top 5 because Tupac, to me, when I talk about lyrical MCs, Tupac is not lyrical. Let me say that again. Tupac is not lyrical. Like, every time people talk about Tupac and they say, well, Pac had this song and he had that song, I'm like, give me Tupac's hottest 16 bars. You can't. Because he doesn't have them. I mean, like, Brenda's Got a Baby is a deep, dope song, but it doesn't make you run and press rewind. It just doesn't. He doesn't have a signature. I mean, and one of the things I think about great MCs is that they'll have a signature song or a signature. I don't even want to say a signature song. They'll have a signature 16 or 32 bars or 64 bars that are just memorable. Case in point, Rakim. I take 7 MCs, put them in a line that adds 7 more brothers who think they can rhyme. You know the rest. And I'm just using Rakim as an example. No, Tupac isn't as lyrical as Rakim. He's just not influential. Like I said, I think Tupac is the most influential MC ever. But he wasn't lyrical. He didn't have lyrics that would just blow you away. I mean, he spoke to the common man. He didn't necessarily speak over our heads. But if you got a hot 16 from Tupac, please tweet me or email me or hit me up, man, because I need to know. I need to know, because I have all of his albums, even the albums that came after he passed, which I don't really personally. After the Don Illuminati Theory and the Are You Still Down With Me album, the double CD. I think that was the last Tupac album that I bought, that I actually purchased. Now I have, the rest of them via Spotify, but I stopped buying Tupac's albums after that because I don't necessarily know that some of those posthumous albums were content that if he were alive he would have put out, because I don't think it was of his caliber. That's just my personal opinion. I think Pac would have not been satisfied with that music. I just don't think he would have. But that's my opinion. I don't think it was great music. I thought it was decent, not great, and I don't think it would have been up to par by his standards, not mine. But again, I don't think he's lyrical. I just don't. I love him to death. And I, much like Biggie and Big Pun, I wish he were still here. But Tupac ends up in a lot of people's top 5, and he is not a top 5 MC. He's in my top 10. So I'm not going to argue with anybody that puts him in their top 5, but if we're having a discussion on a lyrical MC and you put Tupac in the top 5, I'm going to raise an eyebrow because I just don't think he's lyrical. Sue me. So there you have it, folks. Just a few of the not top 5 MCs that I have on my brain. I would love to hear who yours are. Some of the ones that, and I mean, don't give me nobody corny like, Sir Mix-a-Lot or something. I mean, like, give me, it's going to take a little bit of thought. Give me the MCs who people that tend to put in their top 5 that don't make your top 5. And hit me up and tell me why. You can hit me up on Twitter at 12Kyle. Also, follow me on Twitter and follow the podcast at 12Kyle Podcast. Got a new Twitter at 12Kyle Podcast. As I mentioned at the top, make sure that you follow the show on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/12-Kyle. You can also subscribe and not miss any podcast on iTunes, and you can subscribe on Stitcher as well. We're going to be on Google Play very soon. So thanks for the support. Definitely appreciate the love, and I'll holler at you the next time. Peace.